Grab a sheet of paper. I have little sheets of paper. You can have a larger one. A pencil to start with. Some sort of straight edge. It could be a pencil, it could be a ruler. I'm just using the Apple Pencil right now. And a eraser. And a pen. Also, a roll of tape. You can roll your tape up, lint it, and it just makes your tape so it's just not super duper sticky, and it protects your artwork. Oh, and another thing, here's an easel. You can use your desktop, or if you have any sort of flat surface, you can work with that. I guess the easel kind of helps for the sake of the video demo, but it's a nice, it's a helpful drawing tool. Alright, so we got our sheet of paper, tape on the back. I'm going to adhere it to a hard surface. This is just cardboard. There it is. And we'll begin with just, I'll walk you through linear perspective. So with 1-point linear perspective, you have your vanishing point. It could be anywhere on your sheet of paper. Maybe it's to the right, maybe it's to the left, maybe it's on the opposite side, maybe it's in the center, maybe it's high up, maybe it's down low. Your vanishing point, you could be anywhere. We're just going to put it in the center. So there's the vanishing point. I'm going to draw the horizon line. There's our horizon line, that little wavy, maybe that's a hill, but that's where the land meets the sky. And then you have these diagonal lines that converge at the vanishing point, and they're called orthogonals. So we'll make this look like a road or something. So there are two orthogonals. Maybe I'll draw some power lines or something as well. Get a dotted line. Two other orthogonals, just kind of dotted them in as a guide. So you can use orthogonals to help you figure out the height of objects as they get closer and closer to you. So you can see with linear perspective, one of the rules is get lines or orthogonals converge at the vanishing point. Also objects, the closer they are, the larger they are, the further away, the smaller they are. Another thing too, if you're thinking about, like, so these are kind of like rudimentary power lines or whatever. So notice how there's a big space when the power lines are up close, but as they move further away, the space in between them gets smaller and smaller. So that's what helps make this look more lifelike. I'll draw a counter example, so this is something you don't want to do. So you see how everything's kind of the same height, the same distance between each of the power lines. So see how it doesn't look, it looks a little more flat and more like a design, whereas where you look at this instance where the lines, they get taller as they move towards the edge or further to the foreground. The gaps between them get wider too, so it's a little more convincing or realistic, whereas this one seems a little more abstract. So just take note in those little details when you're drawing with linear perspective. So this is outside, so how does that help us when we have to draw inside? So we'll go about drawing a room, just theoretical room in linear perspective. Okay, so just as you would draw an outdoor scene, we're going to faintly draw. So you'll use a pencil. I'm using a pen so we could see a sketch in the video. So vanishing point, horizon line. Draw the boundaries of your room. So that's like a back wall. And another thing, one point linear perspective, so vertical lines are parallel with your sheet of paper or your picture plane. Same with the horizontal line, parallel with the picture plane. So that's for one point linear perspective. Your horizontal and vertical lines, there's at least one face of your object or one face of the room which is just lined up with your paper. So you'll see some 90 degree angles right there. So that's the back of the room. Now I'm going to add the wall and the floor and the ceiling. So there we go. Back wall, other wall, ceiling, floor. So you'll also follow these orthogonal lines if you're putting in a window or any sort of like bookshelves or beds. So there's one line for a window, and add the top and bottom. So we got this the kind of interior window line. We got one orthogonal that's telling us what the top's going to look like. We have another orthogonal that's telling us what the bottom is going to look like. Then the other edge of the window is just going to be straight up and down. It's flush with the wall. So you see how it looks 3D? So something we want, I'll do a counter example on this side here. I'm going to show you what you don't want to do. So see how this window looks three-dimensional? This window almost looks like a square that's just floating in space, which would be really cool to see, but you know, we don't really see floating squares all that much. So hope that helps you. But maybe in another case, okay, so this is supposed to be, you know, this is a wall that's projecting out towards us. This wall, it's just facing us, so you know, we're just kind of looking at it eye level. So if there were any window or poster here, it would make sense for it to be square on that back wall. Hope that makes a little bit of sense. And if you were to add, this is getting really complicated, if we want to make it look like this window is kind of like, see a bit of the wall or how it's inset, you can also use orthogonals to kind of make it look a little more realistic. Okay, so we got these two orthogonal lines. And usually, so what's closest to us in the groove of the window is going to be bigger. What's further away will be slightly smaller. And any sort of kind of divot in the window, so if it's just straight, it's not on like any sort of angle, it's just going to be a horizontal line, which feels a little unusual, but I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so we got a window, like it's kind of set in there a bit. Bring this up close to see how this line, or maybe this line I did a better job. See how it's just straight? Just kind of like the horizontal line of the piece of the page, or the boundaries of the paper. You want that for the inside of your, kind of that corner in the window as well. And then I guess, yeah, another, maybe, oh yeah, I could show you other details such as furniture that might be in your room. So I'm using those orthogonals again. So there's the bed, it's flush with the wall. And see how these are kind of lines here are more on a horizontal, but as I get towards the center, the lines almost become vertical, up and down. So it's almost like, think about like all these orthogonal lines coming out from the vanishing point. It's almost like rays from the sun. They all kind of circle around. So you just maybe you know, it'd look a little funny if the edge of the bed just kind of went off to the, you know, it's horizontal in the center all of a sudden. But yeah, I guess I'll finish up. Also, so there's the foot of the bed. We want to make sure that the back of the bed looks smaller since it's receding in space. Using that orthogonal line will help with that. Okay, so there's another orthogonal. There we go. And thinking, yeah, the more you practice, you know, it seems really, it's just so logical. It can get you down sometimes drawing with linear perspective. But as with everything, as you practice more and more, it becomes more natural and intuitive. But yeah, so there's a bed and a window. You could, if we had any sort of details on the ceiling, you can also use orthogonal lines. So maybe I'll create some crown molding or kind of like grooves where the wall meets the ceiling. So just use the orthogonals to help me see how that crown molding might be wider than as it's closer to us rather than when it's in the back corner of the room. And one more thing, we can create a texture gradient. So whatever's closest to us, we see more detail and more contrast than whatever's further away from us. So maybe I'll put some little like fuzzy scumbling marks at the bottom portion of the composition here, since that's what's like, you know, right near our face, right in the foreground. And maybe just leave this blank white up here because that's further away. We're not going to see as much of that kind of gritty carpet texture. Alright, so that technique, those loose scribbles, that's called scumbling. So we can see there's a lot more like mark making and activity going on down here because it's close, but then as we move up into the background, we don't see it as much. So it's, you know, our eyes can only see so far, so it's simulating human perspective when we do that. So I guess yeah, there's just some tips for like making a theoretical room. And you can apply these when you're observing your own room and making a drawing. So I'll go ahead and do that now. And I guess for my setup, I kind of, you know, I made it easy for myself. I have this screen, and it's pretty much just 3 rectangles, which is pretty easy to draw, or I guess render is another word for drawing here a lot now. And then you know, chose a room that's not too complicated. Just have the and I guess right now I'm not exactly thinking about linear perspective. I'm just putting down the gesture drawing. So gesture is kind of a quick, sketchy reaction to what you see in front of you. You don't have to quite think about proportions and measuring and all those observational techniques quite yet. You're just kind of responding with your gut reaction. Drawing lightly too. Trapezoids, angles. So it's like a geometric kind of composition. Or has a lot of geometric shapes in there. But yeah, based on like kind of, I faintly drew the back wall of the room, so I don't actually see it, but I'm using what I kind of like, I can see where the ceiling meets the back wall, this wall right here, based on this other wall here, or compared to, not based on, compared to the wall right here, following this orthogonal and this orthogonal. I had them continue on and saw where they intersected, and that's where I placed my vanishing point. So that vanishing point is going to help me figure out where, like, this line's going to be, and help me a little bit with this as well, like trying to imagine where that. So this is kind of, it's a little, having this here, the screen doesn't exactly have to obey this vanishing point, but I'm seeing where that might fall or intersect with this horizon line that I placed at the bottom there. So it is it's kind of it's a little bit of a dance figuring out. You make your gesture, then you figure out where your horizontal horizon line will be and your vanishing point. But yeah, I guess I'll fill in with a permanent marker. Got a little wiggly over the tape, and I'm just going to incorporate that in my final picture. So I made this panel just ever so slightly wider than this panel since it's closer. I'm going to draw a little bit of this crown molding detail in the ceiling. So just for these corners of the wall, I'm just going to make them go straight up and down. They don't have to be diagonal. There's this nice break right here where there's so it's like another little kind of, I guess I'm going to draw this line right here. It's going that way. Just adds another little kind of like a horizontal break. It's a directional force, so you have all these kind of verticals that might, they risk kind of leading your eye down, never bringing you back up into the drawing. Having another kind of horizontal line or diagonal line kind of counteracts that. across that little line right there, but I'm just going to roll with it. So this is a door. I'm going to draw the little groove that leads us into the other room. So to show the width of that door, I'm just going to make a horizontal line. It's not going to be diagonal. I'll show you. So at that corner, it's going to make it straight. So it's not going like along that line. It's not going that way. It's just going horizontal. There we go. So just a straight old, oh, well, in that angle, it's not quite bent. I'll fix it. So just a horizontal line. So we got our basic. So there's the screen. That's the screen. Oop, right there. We got our ceiling. There's the ceiling. Let's see. So my view is very different than the computer camera view right there. And then there's the back wall.